You're listening to ClassicallyTrained.net. The wisdom of a clueless gamer, Conan O'Brien. For several decades, those of us who have considered video games to be a serious hobby found ourselves at the mercy of reviews from video game critics, often resorting to the print medium. The 90s were an era of the gaming magazine. Names like GamePro, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and Nintendo Power were the big names. Now, as time's passed, the digital revolution has served to displace print. Now gamers have sought out the opinions of the web-based gaming critic. But all this time, something was missing. The views of a totally clueless gamer. Well, Conan O'Brien is here to change that. At first glance, it's understandable to mistake the lanky, awkward, and pale visage of the individual in question as a gamer, but you'd be wrong. Conan O'Brien is anything but a gamer. And in some strange way, that actually makes for fantastically unbiased reviews. So I share with you 8.5 lessons from the wisdom of a clueless gamer. Lesson 1. Enthusiasm can trump talent. While playing the head-to-head fighting game Injustice: Gods Among Us, Conan resorts to the technique familiar to many beginning gamers, button mashing. Pounding away at the controller, the unskilled Conan manages a victory against the more experienced player, his co-host for the spot, Aaron Blair. Now, I can't comment on Aaron's skill level, but I've been there before. As a skilled Tekken 3 player, button mashers have gotten the best of me. Now, in life, the same thing can happen. Time passes, and we lose our passion or enthusiasm for work or hobbies that we once enjoyed. Even organizations find themselves subject to this principle. Many early successes are attributed to beginner's luck. The real force at play here is enthusiasm, or in Conan's case, button mashing. And apparently, he used the same technique to write his college thesis. Lesson 2. Principles are timeless. In the throwback episode, Conan played games from the Atari 2600. Games like Missile Command, Space Invaders, and E.T. Now, not all the games were the best experience, but Space Invaders won Conan over. Its classic design and solid gameplay were right on spot. Even a clueless gamer could immediately recognize the foundation that makes it successful. Now, while the content of games and books and movies, work, life, business, leadership, they may all vary, the principles that lie underneath do not. Finding success is about identifying core principles about what makes a particular situation or effort successful, and then applying the same principles to what you do in the future. If you ignore these principles, you'll end up like the E.T. game, buried in a landfill, or, as Conan wisely points out, trapped in endless cycles of depression. Lesson 3. Under-promise, over-deliver. In that same episode with the Atari 2600, Conan talks about the cover artwork for Missile Command, saying that it promises way more than it can deliver. Now, this was a common problem for games in the 80s and 90s and even before that, where you had artwork that was elaborate and looked nothing like the game. How many businesses do the same thing? A product or service is built upon promises that are often broken. Think about fast food restaurants. That picture of the burger and the actual thing that arrives, very different. Lesson 4. Focus on what matters most. In an ironic situation, Conan actually got to play Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U before it was even made available to the public. As his co-host, Aaron, was rattling off the various characters from different games and levels, Conan stopped him and asked the important question. Who is the second president of the United States? Nope, wasn't Ben Franklin. No, Abe Lincoln's not it either. So, you know what? It's easy to make fun of others, but if we're honest, we are all guilty of spending a little too much time on things that don't matter. It might be in relationships, it might be in time spent on activities at work, and that brings me to a great saying from the time management world. The worst use of time is to do very well something that doesn't need to be done at all. It's important to set the right priorities. By the way, the second president of the United States was John Adams. Or Samuel Adams, I can't recall at the moment. Lesson 5. Too many choices can be debilitating. When Conan takes on the game of Skyrim, at the outset he's provided an opportunity to create a character. With so many options, Conan eventually remarks it feels like he's doing taxes. A New York Times article talks about a great summary of a study that was conducted that talks about what happens when too many options are presented. In the study, a grocery store displayed free samples of jam. One case had 6 samples, another offered 24 flavors for sample. The irony was not that people sampled more, they really chose to try 2 flavors in both cases, but when it came time to buy, 30% of the shoppers who received 6 sample options made a purchase, but only 3% of the shoppers who had 24 options bought anything. When there are too many choices, we often have analysis paralysis. Lesson 6. Keep it simple. While playing Resident Evil 6, Conan said this: "Zombies should be simple, not turn into pasta or shellfish. That just makes me hungry." Lesson 7. Sometimes one person does all the work. At one point, Conan pairs up with J. Cole to play a co-op game of Splinter Cell, Blacklist. What ended up happening is Jay ended up doing all the work, and Conan was climbing rock walls and hiding in bushes. All too often, in work or school, we're paired up with individuals or teams, and it seems like the same thing can happen. In this context, the best that can happen is those who are more skilled to teach the rest and involve them in completing the work. That will offer a sense of ownership and responsibility, and everyone shares the outcome. But the more I think about it, in that case, it probably is better that Conan just hid out in the bushes. Lesson 8. Keep your messages short and to the point. At the introduction of the Clueless Gamer episode focused on Halo 4, co-host Aaron began to provide Conan with the great backstory behind the Halo universe. As he began rattling off details of the rich history, you can see Conan checking out. Aaron finally summarizes the game by saying, guys shoot and you try to kill them. It all makes sense. Why didn't you say that earlier? While it's always been true, the amount of information we receive on a daily basis, it's very easy to become overwhelmed. In fact, Conan could care less about the history of the game or the names of the characters. His approach was very pragmatic. What do I need to do and how do I do it? The only way to really know what others need is to ask questions and then listen. Final bonus lesson, lesson 8.5, don't find yourself on the wrong side of the mammoth. All too often, we can end up focusing on our efforts in the wrong place. Conan says we're on the wrong side of this thing as they were attacking a mammoth on one of the quests in Skyrim. All too often, we deal with difficult situations and we need to stop trying to take it head on, better position ourselves, and especially this is true if your problem has tusks. The final score, well, Conan may not be the first name that comes to mind when you think about an authoritative video game review or profound life lessons, but here's what I can recommend, is that The Clueless Gamer is great entertainment for those who prefer not to take gaming too seriously. For this reason, I feel it only apropos to bestow a Conan-esque rating on the feature. So on a scale where salmon is equal to positively life-changing, blue crab is equal to worth 99 cents, and water buffalo is the same as better than good, I rank The Clueless Gamer a tentative moon jellyfish. You figure it out.